Shalom Aleichem. My name is Rav Adam Dubin, and I work for the RCA. So this week's Parsha, as we know, is Parshat Tzav, and it falls out, as we know, Erev Pesach. So this year Pesach is unique in that regard, as well as that we are still in the midst of the global pandemic of the coronavirus. Baruch Hashem, many places have opened up more than they had last year at this time, given the advances in the vaccine that's now available, as well as other treatment methodologies, and in general, hopefully people taking care of themselves and each other better now that we know more. But that said, we're still not back to normal, whatever normal might be. At the same time, we will, of course, be able to celebrate the Pesach and the Sedarim and perform our halachic obligations just as we would in any other year when we are once again able to have our extended family and friends with us. Hopefully, during the Sedarim this year, we'll be able to close our eyes for a moment and remember the great Sedarim that we have had in the past and the Mir Hashem that we'll have in the future. So again, this week's Parsha in Tzav, we continue to learn about the details of the Karbanos and the operations of the Beis Hamikdash and the Mishkan, of course, in the Midbar. And it can be difficult to connect these Parshios with Karbanos on a personal level because since we don't have the Beis Hamikdash standing today, we are not able to offer Karbanos. We instead, as the Gemara in Maseches Brachos, Daf Chaf Vav Amud Beis says, that we use tefillah instead. The Beis Hamikdash was replaced by the Shul, the Mikdash Ma'at. But again, over this past year, we know all too well that we haven't been able to spend time in our shuls, however big or small they might be. And many of us, we don't remember what it feels like to approach Hashem in the Beis Hamikdash, even when we're in our Mikdash Ma'at. But we do remember what it feels like to daven with a minyan. And again, many of us have, Baruch Hashem, been able to daven in not only with the minyan, but in shul for at least a few months. But it's still not the same. Social distancing and masks are ubiquitous in our lives for this past year. But we remember what it was like to be in shul and see each other's face and shake each other's hands. And we're taught that when there's a minyan, the Shekhinah dwells there, as the Gemara Maseches Brachos Daf Vav Amud Aleph, as well as it says in Tehillim Perek Pei Beis Aleph. But we know all too well how this was severely lacking all across the world only 1 year ago. Let's turn this pain and yearning of our traditional Pesach and our minyanim towards the Kodesh Baruch Hu and beg him to return our normalcy to us. But while we're at it, we should go one step further and beg Hashem that we should return to the way things really should be, with the Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim, so that we can carry out the halachos of this week's very parsha. We could turn to the parish of the Ramban on this week's parsha in relation to the Korban Mincha. So first, we have some background. As we know, there's different types of minachos that were brought and that were eaten by the Kohanim. The oven-baked offering that were deep fried, the pan offering of the soilus, and the omer, and the chatas offering, and the soita. And these are other types of minachos that were offered entirely on the Mizbeach and were not eaten by the Kohanim. Of course, those are not relevant to our discussion right now. But the first three types are specifically mentioned in our Parsha, in Perek Zayin Pasuk Tes, where it says, Parent 9 Pasuk Test says, "V'chol mincha asher te'afa b'tanur v'chol nasa b'marcheshes v'al machavos l'koyin v'makri v'oisa lo tihiyeh." The Pasuk says that any meal offering that's baked in an oven, or any meal offering that's prepared in a deep fryer or in a small frying pan, shall belong to the kohen who offers it up. The kohanim were divided, as we know, into 24 weekly shifts that served in the Beis Hamikdash on a rotation. Each shift was further divided into 7 groups, with each group serving on a particular day of the week. The groups of kohanim that served on a particular day would generally be entitled to share in the korbanos that were offered on that day. But the relevant pasuk, once again, that any meal offering that was baked in the oven and any that is made in a deep pan that shall be or fried shall be belong to the kohen that offers it. And any meal mincha that's mixed with oil or that's dry, it shall belong to all the sons of Aaron, that is, all the kohanim, like every man alike. And the Ramban discusses the meaning of these 2 psukim, and he gives 2 possible explanations. Based on the simple pshat that the Ramban offers, the plain reading suggests that very clearly that there are 2 categories of menachos. The first is a category that consists of, again, those baked in the oven and that are deep fried. It belonged to the particular kohen that brought them. The second category consists of other types of menachos, which were shared between all the kohanim that were on duty that day. The Ramban understands that all of Bnei Aaron does not mean every single kohen, but rather all the kohanim who were on duty that day, even if they were not involved in bringing that particular korban. The Ramban explains the rationale for this distinction between the 2 categories. The first category of mincha involved more exertion on the part of the officiating kohen, and therefore it was only fair that he should receive the entire mincha offering for himself. Now, the second explanation comes from Chazal, and the Ramban provides us with that view. They have Chazal have a Masorah that the psukim are not to be interpreted according to simple pshat. Rather, Chazal interpret the pasuk as referring to all mincha korbanos, that they shall be shared between all the kohanim who are on duty. And though the first pasuk refers clearly to the individual kohen that offers the korban in question, the Chazal still interpret the pasuk as referring to all the kohanim who are on duty that day, even though only 1 or possibly 2 or maybe 3 kohanim would actually have been involved in offering the korban. In reality, they were acting as shluchim, as agents for all the kohanim who were on duty that day. In this way, we can say that all the kohanim on duty are indirectly involved in offering each korban. Even though the simple pshat of the psukim is more obvious and logical, as often is the case, Chazal's view is still the one that we say is the accepted one, that all the menachos that are shared amongst all the kohanim that were on duty that day. The Ramban explains that this interpretation would be more likely to create shalom, peace and harmony between the kohanim, and shalom is of paramount importance. Chazal's interpretation shows us the importance and value of peace and harmony. To increase in shalom, Chazal even go against the simple pshat. May we all have a chakasha v'sameach filled with lots of simcha. As we know, whenever there's a yontif, we have an obligation for simcha. Despite the difficult circumstances that we're eking out of, but we still must be aware of. We must remember that Hashem does not give us a mitzvah that is impossible for us to do. Emir Hashem, we should see that truly the end of this magefa for everyone all over the world, and that while this year Pesach for most of us while we're eking our way out of the the, the terrible parts of the Megefa that we were involved with last year, that we recognize we're still not normal. Amir Hashem, this should be the last year that Pesach is not normal. Not just not normal in the terms that we're suffering under the pandemic, but as well that we are not where we should be in the Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh with the Beis HaMikdash. May we be zeicha to see a return to normalcy, the true normalcy. Amen. I wish everyone good Shabbos and a Chag Kasher V'Sameach.